Quite a few buildings are seen around the area. The sound of many voices can be heard speaking at the same time, as well as the sound of metal hitting metal and animals making noise. As the two men near the market square, the sounds grow louder. Stalls selling all kinds of locally made ware are put out for display for all to see. They walk by a stall selling bows made from different woods and plenty of arrows. This catches Dorian's attention, and he pauses at the stall to ask about the price of the equipment. For a simple bow, I ask 20 crowns. The finer bows I have took days to make myself. I promise you that 40 crowns are well worth it. Dorian shakes his head, disappointed that he can't afford such works of art, and the two walk onward. They finally reach the smithy, and his father walks in with a broken axe in hand. A few minutes later, his father calls to Dorian to bring all the fur pelts from the wagon. It seems the blacksmith is interested in trading a freshly forged axe for a few pelts. By the end of the conversation, they traded a handful of fox and rabbit pelts for the new axe. Once they left the smithy, they inspected what is left on the wagon. Here, take these, Dorian. His father hands him 6 crowns, which he counts again himself. I'll be trading the rest of our pelts. Would you mind buying both of us a meat pie or anything proper to fill us? I'm starving, his father exclaimed. Dorian leaves his father while he is searching for merchants that will trade with him. Dorian walks past stall after stall, looking for something tasty, finally deciding on some nice-looking pies, as well as some spiced dried meat for each of them. Enjoying the sights and sounds of the market, Dorian starts eating a dried meat and walking looking for his father. After a few minutes of wandering, Dorian spots his father sitting on their wagon that's resting next to a town well. He knocks on his father's back. His father looks in his direction with curiosity. Ah, there you are. I wondered where you were. Now, what did you get us? Dorian holds the dried meat towards his father's face while he chews on his own. Dried meat? Please tell me you at least got the spiced ones, Dorian. You of all people know how bland meat can be. What do you take me for, father? I'm not as foolish as when I was younger, you know. So have at it. It should keep you busy on the way home as well. His father smirks at the thought. Dorian joins his father on the wagon while they observe the different people walking about that they have never met before. His father starts groaning. This meat sure makes me thirsty, son. Care to fill up our water skins before we head back? Dorian nods and picks up both water skins. While Dorian is busy at the well, the sound of a woman screaming can be heard. Everyone immediately stops in their tracks and looks in the direction of the scream. More screams can be heard, both men and women. But suddenly, a swarm of green-skinned goblins rush the market and start attacking anyone within reach. They wear very crude clothing, even if it can be called that. Some are even wearing scraps of iron and steel armor, and worn human clothing. Most are carrying weapons, large sticks, rusty swords, poles, and axes. They look like they were weapons once wielded by soldiers. They slice and cut and smash people and animals alike. Dorian's father loudly proclaims that he needs to grab his bow and kill as many of these creatures as he can. They must all stand together to protect the village. Dorian follows his father's orders instantly and notches an arrow, aiming it towards the horde. With a quick thought and breath, he releases the arrow into the horde, hitting a goblin in the head. All the villagers run to safety or grab weapons and tools to fight off the horde. His father runs towards the villagers fighting the goblins at close range. Dorian knows from experience that his bow is better suited from a distance and runs to find a high point. Running up a small hut and finding his footing on the straw roof, he notches another arrow and shoots into the horde. He looks at his father slicing through goblins like a hot knife through butter. But he sees 3 goblins approaching from behind his father. He quickly readies another arrow and kills one. The remaining 2 stop from surprise and look back at him. They start running towards him, He fires another arrow into the goblin's stomach as it stops and grabs its belly before falling onto the ground. He lost track of the last one. He decides to assist his father quickly and shoots 3 more goblins before he realizes that the goblin was climbing up behind him. He turns and fires at the child-sized creature, but misses. As the goblin is charging towards him, he jumps to the next roof and sees the goblin hesitate. Not letting this opportunity go to waste, he shoots the goblin in the throat and watches as it slowly drowns in its own blood. He hears his father screaming in pain. Once Dorian turned back to his father, he sees the creatures swarming him and the others like an ocean of green bodies. Tears start to form as he keeps shooting arrow after arrow, trying to thin their numbers, but to no avail. Most are already dead or are being beaten to death. What's more, a portion of the horde seems to have noticed his presence and races towards him. He grabs for another arrow, but realizing he's grabbing air, he used all of his arrows. He turns back to the goblin on the roof and pulls out his arrow. He starts running into the nearby forest away from the horde, the village, and his father. With tear-filled eyes, he attempts to put distance between him and the horde. After what felt like hours of running, he finally stopped and propped himself against a large oak tree. His mind, finally allowing his body to rest, starts to think of his father and if he could still be alive. Still catching his breath, he wipes the tears from his eyes, though it doesn't help as more slowly form. He decides to head back to White Ridge, but he will take a different, safer path. After hours, he reaches the town only to find what's left a smoldering mess. Ash and smoke still lay heavy on the ground and in the air. He cautiously enters the town and checks the bodies that aren't completely eaten or burned. He can't find his father anywhere until he sees what looks like the remains of clothing that his father had worn that day. With his shiny new, barely burned wood axe laying next to the pile of bones, he knew his father was gone. These monsters ate his father, and so many others here. He starts crying softly while his tears fall on the ashy grounds. Suddenly he realized something. These things came from the direction of home, he thought to himself. "Mother, no!" he yells loudly. He grabs his father's axe in case he'll need it. After a few hours, Dorian finally reaches their wooden cabin, only to find the windows smashed and the door broken down. He fears the worst as he runs towards the cabin. As he slowly enters through the door, he doesn't hear anything, but he keeps searching. He finds nothing in the cabin, but he suddenly spots a female figure through the broken window. It's his mother, laying against the wood chopping block. He runs to her aid, but he sees her deep wounds and bruises. 2 goblins are laying face down in front of her. He kicked them both, and he sees that they are dead. He quickly holds his mother and tries to speak to her. "Mom, can you hear me? Mom, please answer me. Don't leave me here, please," he yells with tear-filled eyes. Suddenly he feels a soft hand touching his cheek. He looks up to see her looking at him with pained but loving eyes. "I love you, my son. Tell your father I'll be waiting for him." Dorian looks at her with a saddened expression. "He is already waiting for you, Mom. Please tell him I tried, and I love the both of you." His mother's smile fades away, but she pulls her head closer to him and kisses him on the forehead before going limp. Dorian hugs his mother tightly one final time.